Good afternoon. Welcome to Sticky Learning Lunches with me, Nathan Simmons. This I'm really excited about. Okay, admittedly, I've been excited previously. Every day is my favorite day. We're going to be covering some really deep stuff, some stuff that's really personal to me, something that's really important to me. And it's stuff that I think a lot of us here in some way, shape or form have experiences in on either end of the equation. So we're just waiting for the last few people to join in. I was going to make sure I've got a full view. Seeing some regulars here, which is nice. Colin, Andy, Darren, good to see you. Gerdit, thank you very much for being here again. Got Matt in, Vicky again, good to see you. And new faces, which I'm super excited about as well. It's great to be sharing some of this content with some new people, sharing ideas. Just giving it 30 seconds while we're waiting for everyone to get into the room. First things first, as always, he says with his, just reminding me to be here for Sticky Learning. Shut that down. First things first, phones. Let's get your phones out. Let's make sure they're all on flight mode. Mine is. Let's zero out the distractions. We're going to be covering some serious content today, and I want to make sure that you are giving yourself 100% attention. Not just what I'm saying or what I'm sharing or the questions that I'm asking, that you are giving yourself 100% of your attention right now as we go through this content, okay? Next thing is making sure we've got drinks available. Nice cup of tea. Make sure, again, like I say, is reducing the distraction. So you've got a drink available, phone is off, Facebook's closed down, LinkedIn done, we haven't got WhatsApp pinging, buzzing, beeps, nothing. Making sure also you've got your papers ready. If you've got a notepad available, fresh piece of paper. Let's make sure it's a fresh page that, again, you can just devote to the content of today. And at the top of that page, you're going to write keepers. Now, keepers are the things you want to keep hold of. They're the things that you want to remember, the things that you want to go back to that are going to evoke a new train of thought. So after listening to today's content, when you go back and read those notes, it's going to be the things that keeps the thinking and the learning going. That's what sticky learning is all about, making it stick. So good. I think we're all here. I think we're all here right now. Let's make sure we can see everyone there. Good. So let's get into the content today. Welcome to today's lunchtime learning. My name is Nathan Simmons, Senior Leadership Coach and Trainer for MBM, Making Business Matter, the home of sticky learning. And we are the leadership and soft skills provider to the grocery and manufacturing industry. These lunchtime learnings, these micro elements of content about helping you be the best version of you in the work that you do right now, where you are, whether you're working from home or in the office, and also preparing you for the return to work as well. So let's get into this. What are we covering for this week? We are covering mind. We are going to be talking about mental health. We're going to be helping you create the right questions and the right focuses to develop the conversations that you need to be having with your teams. Show of yeses and nos. Who here has experience of mental health? I'm not sure challenge is the right word, but you know, from a personal point of view, who here has some, you know, concerns, challenges, questions about their own mental health and their own mental well-being? I'm one. Who here has got people in their teams that have some mental health conversations that need to be had? I'm mindful of my language. It means different things to different people. Tough a few years back, yeah, tried to hide from it, friends, certainly employers, yeah. I do, absolutely. So the idea of this is, let me ask a different question. How many people here have got people in your teams that are in your direct responsibility, in your gift, that you know that they have some, they need some support around their mental health and their mental well-being, but you don't know what to say? Who here is having this challenge? I do, good. I do, yeah. If you're going to take one thing away from today's training, from what, the next 15 minutes, what's the one thing that you would like to take away from today that is going to help you to have that conversation? Yes, but learning all the time. Our company charity is a mental health. Yeah, absolutely. So more companies are getting involved in this. More companies are getting involved with mental health charities and organisations. First response is to be approachable. Absolutely. What else do you want? What else? This is a question for everyone. What do you want to get from the next 15 minutes in order to support the conversations about mental health with your team? How to open it up? Good. To try and get my team member to be open with me when they need support. Tools to help just one person. How to spot it? Absolutely. Good. Let's dive into this. I've got 3 key elements here that I want to share with you, and I've got some other stuff that I want to kind of just go through with you. Everybody has mental health. It doesn't matter who you are or where you think you are on whatever continuum, spectrum, or framework. Everybody has mental health and a level of mental well-being, and more businesses are talking about, which is phenomenal. The challenge is, though, that just because the business is talking about it, does it mean that your leaders are talking about it? Does it mean that your leaders have the conversational skills to open up the conversation, to actually spot it, and when they do, to actually face into it, to help the individual do what they need to do, not for themselves, but to help that person that's in their gift, in their charge, go and get the support they need to take the action for themselves. So as leaders, you know, the biggest call out that I have as a previous leader, as someone that's experienced mental health from both sides, is that I would probably say 95 to 98% as an educated guess of leaders simply don't know how to start the conversation. And because they're not sure, they have this level of uncertainty, it makes them nervous. It makes them reticent to actually engage in it and step over that point and get into it to find out what's going on, because they're worried that they'll make it worse. And in truth, the one thing that will make it worse is not actually saying anything. You can say anything to anybody as long as you do it with absolute love and respect. If you're dealing with someone that is in crisis, that has got challenges, doesn't know what the next step is for themselves, by ignoring it, you're actually going to compound it. So we have to learn as leaders just to step into that and, you know, talk to people about this. Explain to them, you know what, I'm not used to this conversation. I feel nervous about having this conversation because this is very new to me. And at the same time, I want to ask you a question that's going to help you do what you need to do, that's going to help improve the situation, or help you to improve the thinking about this situation, whatever it might be. But I would rather have someone show me that they care, even if it was clunky or nervous. At least I know they care about me because they bothered to have the conversation. Yet too often we're concerned from a HR perspective, from a leadership point of view, or even a tribunal point of view, maybe I said the wrong thing. And as I said, you know, you can say anything you want to someone as long as it's done with absolute love and respect. Being rude is just being rude. Being inhumane is just being inhumane, and you cannot dress any of that up. So it's about, first of all, making sure that we are getting clear on our own head about how we have these conversations. So this week is going to be all about mind. The first part on mind is mindset. It's about helping people get clear, okay, where are they in the process? Now, the model that I've designed, the framework, this first part is just helping people get back into their mind. It's about helping them to de-escalate and create enough space in order to be able to have the rest of the conversation. When people are in crisis, their brains are working very slightly differently. It's not incorrectly. They're doing what they believe, or the brain believes is the right process in order to keep themselves safe. And because of a situation that's happened, that process is then repeated time and time again whenever those indicators build up to that. We'll cover that in a minute. So the first part of this around mindset is signposting. In this model, in this framework, it's just the mindset part is about creating the space to help someone de-escalate, just bring the emotions back, create a center so that they can then start thinking a little bit more clearly and help them to move themselves forward, whether it's in a moment of anxiety or depression, or potentially the build up to a PTSD flashback. When we see someone starting to go into crisis, we need to get them clear on why we're there and where they're going. We want to help, we want to not necessarily calm the situation, we just want to facilitate it and make it a bit more easier. So what do I mean by this? Someone goes into crisis, the first thing that I do as a mental health first aider is arriving in the situation is getting a little bit of understanding about what's going on. But I want to make sure that person's included. I don't want to exclude them, because then they're going to feel like they're being talked about, which may then escalate the emotions. Tell me, what's going on? How can I help? What's the reason I'm here? Okay, I'm going to ask some questions because I want to find out what's happening for you. I want to find out if there's a right person to speak to, who we need to get to support you and move you into the best possible place. Is it okay that I ask you these questions that's going to help to improve this situation? How many people, when I just asked that question, just said yes in their own head, and we're not even actually having a crisis situation? How many people said yes? Say aye. It's a loaded question. Why? Because I want this person to understand that I'm here to help them. Yes, I'm a challenging individual. I know I pride myself on the level of challenge I give people and the questions I ask them. But I'm here to support you, to improve the situation. So I'm going to ask these questions because I want to find out. So what I'm using is kind of the law of affability. It's almost like a sales technique to get that person to agree to the situation. So I'm getting them to come along with me. This is the first stage. So I'm going to tell them why I'm in the conversation. Question for everyone here: why are you in the conversation? Why are you here today? And why are you in the conversations with those people? So if someone at work's having an anxiety attack or a PTSD flashback or mental, why are you joining that conversation? To help, good. And when we talk about mindset, I'm not just talking about theirs, I'm talking about yours as well. And knowing why you're in the conversation to help me and others through tough times, absolutely. If you understand your mindset in this conversation, why you're in the conversation, it's easier for you to signpost to people, this is why I'm here, this is how I would like to help, and it's by asking some questions. If any of you have done the first aid training through Mental Health England, we're not here to give advice. Coaches aren't here to give advice. We're here to ask questions to support you developing and getting where you need to be, where you want to be. So we signpost why we're in there. And then we start finding out some more information. And from here, we can find out where is the best place. Okay, where's best for you right now? Where can we move you? Can we get you to an alternative location that's a bit more comfortable? Meeting room, office, outside, maybe some fresh air. So we start to get the information, we start to ask them questions of how to support them, and we start to give them a narrative. This is why I'm here. This is what I would like to do. These are the questions I'm going to ask you. So the person goes, I know what's coming. Because anxiety and these sort of elements, these initial raising of emotions, comes from uncertainty and ambiguity. We don't know what's coming next, therefore the brain goes into a certain process that starts to cause the shutdown. So when we tell people what's going on, we start putting people back in control using certain questions, it starts to reduce the emotions a bit and it enables us to have a bit more of a conversation. Hope this is useful. I'm talking at speed because I'm conscious of time. So we're signposting. Number 2 is mechanics. The reason that we're signposting is we want that person thinking to shift. The reason it's shifted is any mental health diagnosis in the majority, or situation or challenge is caused by some sort of trauma. And trauma is relative. It means different things to different people. I was bullied horrendously at school. As a result of that also led into certain other behaviours later on. And that was what started my trauma. Now, I've also worked in peer groups of other men as well, and one of those was sex trafficked by his family members. Trauma is relative. It doesn't diminish how we feel or where our thinking is. What means something to one person means something different to somebody else. So nobody can devalue or depreciate how you feel about a situation and how your body or brain has chosen or the choice that was made to react and build that in as a behavior. So you've got to understand this. When you're speaking to someone in your team and they had a poor relationship with a parent or something, it may seem to you very low in the scale. To them, though, it's everything. So we need to be clear on this. And again, we need to ask the questions just to help them to understand what they can do about it, what charity organisations, where they can get support, whether it's EAP, all these sorts of things. So the mechanics here starts to shift. As we start to go into a stress reaction, front part of our brain starts to shut down and we start to move into kind of the more primordial parts of the brain, the primitive parts of the brain, the amygdala, where the fear elements work from, where the emotions come from. And down in here is where emotion is built, but not language. Up here is where language is built, but not emotion. So as the top part of the brain starts to stop working, we go into the lower parts of the brain, which are all about emotions, but not language. So we're not able to articulate ourselves very well. We're not able to get our thoughts across clearly. Has anyone been out on a weekend and they've seen a fight starting, in the pub or the club? Have you ever noticed how the people getting in the fight start to only use words with one syllable? I'm not asking for examples, by the way. When you know this, it's because the logical part, the language part of the brain is starting to close down. When we're having an episode of some sort, that's also starting to happen. We go into the stress reaction, we go into the 4 Fs, the fight, flight, flock, or freeze. So our habits and our instincts take over. And it's just simply our brain doing its best it can to keep us alive. The challenge is your brain can't differentiate between a job interview or a saber-toothed tiger. You can't tell the difference. They're both equally as dangerous according to that primordial part, the amygdala. So when we start to do this, we need to be aware of the reason why we're signposting is because we know the person's brain has started to shift focus. It's working completely normally. It's just started to shift focus. So we need to signpost it people to let them know that we're here to support them, that we are not a threat. Because we need to understand that your brain or our brains are playing tricks on us. So we have to play tricks on it to help that person get where they need to be. Hope this is making sense with everyone. Let me know in the question box as we're moving on to the next bit. What's been useful so far from today? I've still got one more point that I'm going to drop in with you in just 2 seconds. What's been useful so far? The fight part where people use one word, that makes sense, absolutely. As I was doing at the beginning of this conversation, this structure for conversation is really, really useful. Good, it's about them feeling safe to participate. Absolutely, we are creating psychological safety to understand that we're only there to facilitate and signposting. Good. And we're using the questions, which is what I was already doing at the beginning part of the conversation. How many people here have got this? How many people have got experience of this? Okay, engage in the conversation. What's the reason you're here? Signpost to people, this is how I'm going to help you. Where would be best for you? I'm bringing them in, getting permission to help and support them. Absolutely. Reminder that the job interview and Tiger are not different. Absolutely. So we're using the questions. Your brain is a validation machine. I will express this a million times until I die. I believe I got this from Tony Robbins. Your brain is a validation machine. Whatever question you put into your brain, it will create an answer. It doesn't matter whether you know it, it's true, you got it from EastEnders, your mum, from the dictionary, doesn't matter. Whatever question you ask, your brain will create a response. And that's what it's there to do. It's a validation machine, checking to make sure what I'm moving towards is pleasurable and life affirming, and moving away from things that are dangerous, painful, and death. And that's the only two relevant reference points it's got, especially at this primordial part. We use questions to control the focus and help them to focus their control. So when we're doing this, and this is where the mental health coaching cue cards came from, is in the beginning of that coaching deck, there is a raft of questions for the mindset element. Used from CBT techniques, de-escalation techniques, where we want to bring people out from this area, high up in the brain, like out of their own heads because they're not thinking clearly, and bringing them back into their center, into their body, to control their senses and get that that space, and to actually get a sense of feeling back. You ever notice when you start to become highly emotional, you start becoming aware of things? When you're really, really stressed, the blood pressure builds up and you can't hear anything, or you can't feel certain things. It's because your thinking has escalated to a point where your body functions are starting to shut down because you're pumping so much adrenaline through your system. So what we want to do is we want to bring people back to their senses. One technique is, tell me something you can see. Tell me something you can feel. Tell me something that you can smell. So we're bringing people back consciously to their senses. One thing we did recently, or I learned, and I also applied it to with my own daughter recently, is play the rainbow game. Tell me something you can see that's blue. So you're getting people to use logical parts of their brain to associate color with objects. So it's just starting to pump blood back to the front part of the brain to help them apply logic and re-engage the thinking. With our daughter, my daughter was having a meltdown. We're in lockdown right now. This is week 7 or whatever. We're in a crisis situation. Sometimes the emotions get really high. Daughter having a meltdown, is tired, she's 7, all these elements. I said, let's play the rainbow game. And she was like, the what? And even saying, let's play the rainbow game was enough to snap her out of that for a moment. And I said, okay, this is a technique that we use. Tell me something you can see that's red. All of a sudden the attention shifted very quickly because she hasn't got the complexities or the so-called nuances of adult life to cloud that, but she was instantly into the rainbow game. And in fact, she wanted to play it twice. So what we're doing is we're giving people focal points to look at. We're getting them to think about how their body feels. How does it feel when you breathe deeply? So again, we're getting the logical part of the brain to associate to something else to then concentrate on that. What do you think of that causes calm? What do you think of that helps you to breathe slowly? Picture starts to form in the brain, breathing starts to slow down, and we reinforce it. Because we've told them why we're here and we understand the mechanics, we're then able to ask certain questions that control the focus that get that person to focus themselves. As we start to do that, we understand that the breathing starts to drop down, the heart rate starts to slow down, and then we can have a different part of the conversation. When we look at the mind framework, next part is importance, and then network, and then direction. You cannot go to the next train station on this journey until you've got this first part right in the best possible place. If I start walking in knowing 15 different questions, they don't know who I am, they don't know why I am, I'm trying to find out who their best friend is, I'm trying to tell them what to do, which is not the right thing to do in a mental health situation, they're not going to de-escalate, they'll never hear you because they're not getting back into their own senses and they're not able to use the logical part of the brain. So we use the questions just to bring it down. Let's recap on this, crikey, time. Signpost, narrative, tell them why you are in the conversation, and you guys need to know why you're in the conversation and for whose benefit it is. Find out why they're in this situation, find out where yours and their mindset is, and give them a narrative as to what you're bringing. Understand the headline mechanics of what's going on here, and then start to ask the right questions to help bring that person down into their body, back into their senses, to help them then be able to get some more clarity and more headway in the situation. Hope today's been useful. Please, what's been useful now? I know some of you guys have just shared some bits in here. What are you taking away from today's session? What have you written down in your keepers about today's 20 minutes that is going to help you do a better job as a leader in your teams, building skills and mental health with your guys? Love the rainbow. Thank you. As those responses are coming in, link in the chat box, mental health coaching cards. They are £5. It takes you through the mind model step by step to help you ask the right questions, better questions to support yourself and your teams and your businesses to help shift focuses. As Geoff said, shifting focuses, absolutely. Link in the chat box now. If you haven't got a copy of the mental health coaching cards, get them. They are going to be an absolute godsend for those leaders that are moving into this space. What have we got here? Shifting focus. Better to say something, ask something, even if it's clunky, rather than ignore it and wait for them to raise it. Absolutely. And do you know what? Even asking or saying, do you know what? I observed this. I felt like something's not right. What's going on for you? How are you today? Just showing people that you care will be the start. Structured approach. Never thought before about narrative or questions that will help. Brilliant. The rainbow questioning, calming, re-engaging, shifting the focus. Absolutely. Affirmed previous knowledge. Nice. So good. Brad, I'm glad you've got the knowledge. Keep building it and practice it and share it with other people as well. Emotional part of brain and getting into rational part of the brain. Absolutely. They need to work together. No, you can't have one without the other. Rainbow question, simple and easy. Absolutely. Change the focus, be clear on why I'm getting involved. Absolutely. When people know why you're in the conversation, they will engage with you because they understand what you're bringing. They understand that they are the most important person in the conversation. Even when you're looking at giving feedback or coaching, and at MBN we talk about the Don't Shout campaign when we're giving feedback, is who is the most important person in the conversation. Whenever you're giving feedback, coaching, or supporting someone else in a mental health situation, who is the most important person in the conversation? When you get this clear in your head, it's easier for you to articulate it to other people so they actually believe it. And as a result of that, they'll go, okay, I will listen to you, I will get help from you, I understand that you're here to support me. And then you can ask the next lot of questions that are going to help them to progress down that journey to get where they need to be. Hope this is useful. What questions have you got for me right now? What questions have you got for me that I might be able to help with or direct you to? And just while we're there, one thing I forgot to say, everybody, the link for tomorrow's session is in the chat box right now. If you have not registered, do that immediately. As soon as this finishes, register for tomorrow's session. Make sure you're in for tomorrow as well. I'm super keen for you to get all these skill sets and these understandings. A sign of someone that is struggling. There are lots. The thing is, for the signs of someone struggling, is look for the signs that aren't normal. Is when you get to know people, what is off, what is out of turn, what is suspicious, but not looking to catch them getting it wrong, looking to see actually does this fit with their normal character. I am a very results focused, driven, goal orientated individual. I become quieter. When my emotions become higher, I become quieter and quieter, and that's often a trigger. Some people get angry and agitated, and they will push because they want to get a reaction because they're making a bid for connection. So it's just looking to see what's right or wrong, what doesn't feel normal. If it's out of turn, then there's something else that needs to be looked at. When will the cards arrive? Have ordered it. Yes, they are on their way. I'll get a message to you shortly. What is the 5 Fs? 4 Fs. 4 Fs. Fight, flight, flock, or freeze. Yes. Fight, flight, flock, or freeze. Normally they talk about fight or flight. But actually, if you look in nature, you'll see fight and flight as the normal primitive reactions, not a natural reaction, but you've also got flock and freeze. So you'll see animals that actually will freeze because the brain of most creatures is designed for movement and novelty. Actually, some animals will freeze because they know that actually, look at a stick insect. If it doesn't move, it doesn't get eaten. Flock is when actually people gather together. They feel safe, they feel safety in numbers. They gather together. You'll see people in the office congregate around the printer and complain about the new process that's been inflicted on them. They feel better coming together to complain about it. They don't do anything about it. They'll just go back to wherever they were working. The 4 Fs: fight, flight, flock, freeze. The opening line: should you start with your observations? Absolutely can do. I saw this. This is what I've observed. I'd like to have a conversation. I'd like to find out more about what's going on because I care about you. When approaching a conversation as a mental health first aider, do you follow the Arggh model, asking about suicide first? I don't necessarily need to ask about the suicide first. I do follow the Arggh model. So I want to assess what's going on first of all, and I want to listen. And that assessment and listening for me comes from coaching questions. I'm not here to give advice. Depending on where they are on kind of depression, mental health, is asking what's the plan. That's normally the question. You know, if you have a concern about this, I'm really concerned about this. And the more questions you ask, and the more you clearly signposted, the more they will engage with you, and the more they will offer you and give you. And if someone says, "I'm thinking about," and it'll probably be in their choice of language, committing suicide, committing and completing two very different thinking process. Is okay, so what's the plan? Without any judgment, with just absolute curiosity to support this person, what's the plan? Because it's not something that we decide and wake up in the morning and doodle on the back of a fag packet. There's a serious thinking process that goes behind this. What if they don't recognize they're struggling? Huge. A phrase that I've heard recently in the last week or so was high functioning depression, which is something I believe that I've lived with for quite large quantities of my life. And I didn't recognize I was struggling. You know, people don't until they get to a breaking point where their stress pot is so full that actually the lid comes off and then there's a problem. So as leaders, it's important that we actually engage with people and give people different structures and viewpoints to help them build on that. Rather than going in and trying to do some sort of negotiation and say, "Oh, I see you're struggling," and the person goes, "Yeah, thanks. You know, you see I'm struggling," you make the person feel inferior or less of a human or less cared about or whatever, or less capable because we're pointing that out. Now say, "Do you know what, I've observed this and I'd like to find out what the thinking is behind that. What's happening for you? Where's this approach come from? What's the logic behind this?" I want to provide some other frameworks and structures here. We don't have to necessarily talk about your mental health, your tolerance level, your stress, but no. What's the thinking behind this? And actually, we could help as leaders to maybe redirect a process that makes them feel more comfortable and more capable to do that. And also, you've made yourself approachable. I saw this. I want to get the logic behind that and really understand what's causing that. And you make yourself more approachable to the individual so that they can actually, they will see you as a person for guidance. Now we're catching them getting it right. We're offering ways and opportunities to develop. Hope that helps. If you can't get a connection with the person, don't give up, even though it's even through a third party. Absolutely, have the conversations. And I think it's the same with coaches and mentors and trainers. There will always be someone that is a best fit for that individual. There will be certain things that I'm better equipped to deal with. And actually, while I'm in that, it might say, "Do you know what? Actually, let's have a look at this. this might be the best person to speak to. You might need to speak to HR. You might need to speak to this charity organisation, whatever it is. Find those people, and then just check in with them. Then it is up to them to take the next steps. You can't give advice. You can seek experts though. And it's just building up the conversation over the course of time. They may not be ready to have the conversation with you first time because they've only just met you. And actually, as a result of this, they may not open up completely. But you just keep offering the different ways of working to help them build up their skill set. And as they can see that you're approachable, personable, caring, supportive, they will then bring more conversation to you so that you can have more of that conversation. So that, fingers crossed, you don't get into a potentially crisis situation. That person will come and speak to you before it actually escalates to that point. Hope this is useful. Everybody, thanks very much for today. I'm conscious of time. We're 6 minutes over. Apologies for that. I'm very respectful of your time. A lot of content to cover. Hope this has been useful. They've got some links in there for other charity organisations as well. So if you've got more questions about this or you've got concerns you're going to, we've got Heads Together down there as well. So we've got a link into them so you can get more information from them as well about different elements on mental health and support mechanisms. Tomorrow, we're going to go into the I of mind, which is about importance, where the focus is, and how you can help people to shift that focus. So you can help them to step out of what they're looking at it from a different angle and build up the skills and momentum to actually improve the situation. Liz, you're very welcome. Really appreciate the thanks on that. Everybody, I hope you have a lovely day. I hope this has been useful. I look forward to seeing you here tomorrow. Please make sure you're registered, get your seat, because it's great to have some questions with you. Thanks very much for today, everyone. Thank you.